Hey guys, Shio here, and I finally 100% SpongeBob SquarePants The Cosmic Shake. I was super excited for this game because I'm a longtime SpongeBob fan, but I will say this about this game: it was extremely easy to 100%. This is the shortest time I've ever spent 100%ing a game, and it took me around 12 hours. Don't get me wrong, I love the platforming and visuals in this game. Everything felt so fluid, everything popped. It generally felt like I was in a cartoon, which I found pleasing about this game. I just wish for $40 Canadian there was more content to this game. It felt very short. But they did get Mr. Krabs' voice actor for this one, so his voice didn't sound off like it did in SpongeBob Rehydrated.
Worried for me money, of course.
But without further ado, let's get into the story and the achievements. First off in the story, we have the tutorial, where SpongeBob comes out of his pineapple looking like he's ready to go to Glove World with Patrick. He then goes to Patrick's house, where Patrick doesn't seem to be awake yet, and there seems to be a traffic accident that happened that's blocking the path to the Krusty Krab. This is where we learn how to jump. After jumping over the blockage, we head to Sandy, where we are tasked to destroy some tikis and learn how to spin attack. After the tikis are destroyed, there's a quick achievement you can grab here by spin attacking NPCs 25 times to get the achievement Wanted Sponge. We quickly talk to Sandy, then Patrick's alarm seems to go off, indicating he's awake and ready to go to Glove World. During the Glove World cutscene, SpongeBob and Patrick find a shady wagon that appears out of nowhere and find some magic bubble soap. This is where we are introduced to a new character called Madame Cassandra, which sells us the bubble soap. We're now back at SpongeBob's house, where SpongeBob and Patrick are using the magic bubble soap to make wishes. After SpongeBob makes a bunch of wishes, Patrick then reads the magic bubble soap, where it says only those of innocent heart may harness the power of the mermaid tears. Property of King Neptune, not to be used by mortals, used sparingly and with caution. Then everything goes into chaos. After some exploring around the recently destroyed Bikini Bottom, we make our way to the Krusty Krab, where we find Plankton in trouble. This is where we find our first enemy, called the Jellies. These are pretty much the basic enemy in the game you'll come across everywhere. They aren't too hard to dispatch of, so after the whole fight, we get to talk with Madame Cassandra again. She explains after all the wishes we made, it caused holes to form in the universe, creating cosmic jelly to go everywhere. And we are tasked to save our friends who got sucked into these wish dimensions and bring back any cosmic jelly we find so Madame Cassandra can help us fix this whole mess we made. She gives us a cowboy outfit, and our next achievement unlocked Dress Up, which is unlocking our first costume. But after that, we are tasked to find the portal that leads to the Wild West world and where Mr. Krabs is. After entering the portal to our first wish world, we enter it riding on a seahorse. I'll say this about the riding in this game: it's the only movement that feels clunky. In later levels, it becomes more apparent, but early on, it doesn't show as much. After the whole pony ride, we find ourselves talking to a poster fish, who then tells us to find the sheriff in Manta Fe to help with our little crab problem. Before we make it to Manta Fe, we find what appears to be a gray button on the ground. This button only unlocks when we obtain the karate kick ability later on in the game. A big portion of this game is going to later levels, learning new abilities, and coming back to previous levels to gather all the collectibles in them, such as doubloons. For every certain amount of doubloons you collect, you gain a tier in the costume shop to buy more costumes with. This game's currency, Cosmic Jelly. You need to collect every doubloon in this game to get the all costume achievement, so be sure to keep an eye out for the collectibles. After that, we find Mrs. Puff or in this world, she's known as the riding instructor. We quickly explore the riding instructor camp, collecting all the collectibles we can find here at this time, and then head back to Mrs. Puff for our riding test, where if we succeed, we get a license, but sadly not for boats. Just a heads up, if you take the right path right here in the course, it leads you to a doubloon. Now we made it to Manta Fe. There's a couple doubloons here I'll be grabbing here first before we head into the saloon. One of them for doing this target game, where you hit targets with bubbles, and another for running around the buildings hitting 3 buttons. After that, we head into the saloon, where we find the sheriff, who is Sandy. While we talk to Sandy, we get into a bar fight with some jelly bandits. After the fight, we get into a cactus soda drink off with Sandy. This was fairly easy. It took me a minute to get the concept of the minigame down and beat Sandy, where we find that we are out of cactus juice and are tasked to collect more. After we leave the saloon, we get into a fight with a new enemy, the Tartar Jelly. This enemy uses tartar sauce as a ranged attack. It's really easy to dodge. You shouldn't have too much troubles with this enemy. After the fight outside, we find ourselves a familiar looking stranger who will help us teach us how to get cactus juice for 80% of the profits. Doesn't sound like a scam to me. After riding our way to the cactus area, we obtain 2 more achievements: Bamboozled, where you bubble an enemy who hasn't detected SpongeBob yet, and Sponge out of harm's way, where we defeat 50 enemies who haven't done damage to SpongeBob yet. After collecting some cactus juice, we are introduced to another new enemy, the Jelly Maker. This enemy has an achievement attached to it, where if you kill 5 of them, where you need to kill 5 of them by rebounding or like hitting the jellies that they make, like the basic jellies, into him with the finishing hit. So you just need to hit it twice, and then finish it off with by colliding another jelly into it. After collecting the rest of the cactus juice, we fill up the final barrel for the ground beneath us to break, and we finally find ourselves in a cave. After making our way near the end of the cave, we find a gold miner who tells us he'll help us get back up to the surface if we find his gold tooth. After finding the gold tooth, we get into a fight with another horde of enemies, where we get the achievement Stunning Performance, where we push 50 enemies with the Jelly Maker's Roar. After giving the miner his gold tooth back, we get access to the elevator where we find that all of the cactus juice we collected is being stolen. There's an achievement with this boss stage where you need to catch Mr. Krabs in under 3 minutes, but I believe that you can only get this achievement done in endgame, like post game, where you finish all the story and then you can redo all the boss fights afterwards. So after making our way through the train, we find and apprehend Mr. Krabs, taking him back to Bikini Bottom, getting the story achievement Deputy for finishing all the main quests in Wild West Jellyfish Fields. After walking around, we get a new outfit from Madame Cassandra and access to our next wish world, Karate Downtown Bikini Bottom, where we find ourselves as a karate movie star. After making our way through the red carpet portion of the level, we find ourselves a new enemy called the Big Jelly. This enemy has 2 sets of moves, one where he slams the bathtub he's carrying on the ground once or twice, or the other being he picks up the bathtub and swirls around in a circle. After each attack, he has a 3-second period where he's vulnerable to damage. After the fight, we make our way to the director, who is Squidward. He's finally being appreciated for his art, I think. After talking, we get put into a side-scrolling part of the level. Nothing too unique here, just some jelly fighting. After the side-scrolling and more of the level, we find ourselves talking to the director again, who is teaching us how to use the karate kick. This has to be one of the coolest moves they gave SpongeBob in a while in any SpongeBob game, because it literally feels like Sonic's homing attack. It's nice that they use the karate kick as a new way of platforming in the game. It makes the platforming feel a lot more lively. But after some parkouring over the level, we get into a fight with a brand new enemy known as Ninjellies. This enemy is invulnerable to damage unless it's on its back. To get this enemy on its back, you need to either karate kick them, or let them run into a wall while they're trying to attack you. While we go through the level, we are tasked to find the hidden paparazzi who's trying to take pictures of anything that goes wrong in the movie set. This part felt goofy and funny because of all the poses that SpongeBob does to the paparazzi, just so that they can take pictures of him. It just felt really goofy and funny, and I loved it. It was generally one of the more like funny. It's the cartoony part of this game that I love. After getting rid of the paparazzi, we are tasked with on a timer to find find and save some trapped citizens who are trapped in piles of garbage. Then while finishing that, we get to an area called the Walk of Fame, where we karate kick in slow motion across the Walk of Fame. Legit, it felt awesome. Like, this was awesome. After the Walk of Fame, the director asks us to find a vehicle to use for the next scene. Wait, a vehicle, you may ask? But SpongeBob doesn't have a boating license. Joke's on you, it's the next best thing SpongeBob can find. Not sure what it's called, but it looks like a unicycle. I really don't know what it's called in the cartoon because I forget. But I really like these jumps into different types of gameplay that this game does, from actual platforming to whatever you can call this, like Subway Surfer style gameplay. It generally makes the gameplay feel fresh. So after the whole unicycle car chase scene, we are now at the dojo estate, where we do a quick door puzzle and find ourselves helping a fish who's being attacked by the jellies known as the paparazzo. We quickly dispatch of all the jellies, and the paparazzo is complimenting the director on his great choice of cast. We then are tasked to make our way to the dojo rooftop, where we parkour across the roofs of a lot of buildings, finding any collectibles along the way. We're now at the boss fight of the game, where we are facing the one and only Sandy. It's a pretty straightforward boss fight. When she's in this phase of her attacks, all you do is you guide her into the explosives behind you. On the second phase, she will grab her decked out hamster wheel and lay it on its side. Just keep moving or jump over it when it's coming at you to dodge it. Third phase, her bodyguards will come out and circle the arena in a tackling formation. All you do is you go in between the gaps of the bodyguards to dodge the damage. There is an achievement attached to this boss fight where I will be getting after the story is finished, where you complete the whole boss fight without taking any damage. I'd say this is probably one of the more harder boss achievements because I'm never good at dodging. But after the boss fight, we bring Sandy back to Bikini Bottom, gaining our next story achievement, Movie Star. Next we're tasked to find SpongeBob's pineapple, but guess what the next world is? It's a pirate world. You would expect this to be Mr. Krabs' Wish World, if anything, but nope, it's where Larry and the Flying Dutchman is. I guess since it takes place on a beach, it makes sense for Larry to be here, but I really would have expected this to be Mr. Krabs. After meeting with the Flying Dutchman, we find that a character by the name of Admiral Prawn has commandeered his ship, and we need to get the Flying Dutchman's socks to help get the ship back. It's very confusing, but it's to be expected from a SpongeBob game. But after the collecting of the socks, we are now tasked to save Larry. While saving Larry, we encounter yet a new enemy called Baby Boom. These guys hurl bombs at you, and there's multiple achievements attached to these guys. But the achievement I'll let you all know is the achievement Volley King, where you need to defeat 10 Baby Booms by bouncing back their projectiles at them. After saving Larry, we learn a new platforming ability, Swing, where we lasso fish hooks to swing across them, and our next task to save 12 anchovies. While looking for the anchovies, we find ourselves our next achievement, Music Enthusiast, where we listen to a Slamville perform a solo in the peace and quiet. After that, we encounter our newest enemy, a Slamville. All these guys do is fly, and when they're hovering over you, they will slam their bodies on the ground. You can hit them in the air, but it's a lot easier to let them slam down because they'll get stuck for a couple seconds so that you can hit them. After freeing the rest of the anchovies, our goal now is to hoist the Dutchman's socks as flags on board some pirate ships. The rest of the level is just meeting Mr. Krabs, a mermaid finding lost treasure, and more socks. There are two harder to get achievements here you can unlock here, though, first being the achievement Friendly with Fire, where you defeat a big jelly with a Baby Boom projectile, where you can get right here. And the Wrath Tub, where you defeat 25 enemies with the big jelly's attacks, right here. I don't get them until I finish the story, so don't worry too much about getting them right now unless you want to get them off the bat. But after all the exploring, we make our way to the boss section of the level, where we must reach the Flying Dutchman's ship and reclaim it. There's not really any gimmicks here, it's just a straightforward platforming and monster fighting. I really wish there was a boss fight. Some of the final parts of these levels just feel lazy. It would have felt nice to actually fight Admiral Prawn or something here, but that's probably just me complaining. But like all boss parts of the levels, if you reclaim the Dutchman ship within 5 minutes, you get the achievement Deck Scrubber. So after all that, we reclaim the ship and take our pineapple back to Bikini Bottom, getting our next story achievement, First Mate. After we make it back to Bikini Bottom, we have a talk with Mr. Krabs and Plankton at the Chum Bucket, where they seem to have a line of hungry customers in front of the Chum Bucket, you may ask. But no, they're cooking Krabby Patties for them. So as the fry cook, we get into a little mini game where we have to cook a certain amount of Krabby Patties in a specific amount of time to complete it. It was a simple mini game. All you do is flip the patties when the side of it is done until the timer runs out. We then talk to Madame Cassandra to get our very next story outfit and the location to the next portal, which is Gary's Wish World. As we enter the next Wish World, we find ourselves in Halloween Rock Bottom. There are quite a bit of references here in this level that I really like, such as the candy machine reference from the Rock Bottom episode of SpongeBob. But after that, we encounter our newest enemy quite fast here, the Spooky Jelly, which looks exactly like an anglerfish. The enemy's gimmick is if you stand in front of it long enough, it will fire a laser at you, freezing you. All you do to defeat the Spooky Jelly is go up behind him and spook him to defeat him. Quite simple. After some traveling, we make it to Candyville, where after some talking to the Mrs. Puff of this world, we have to collect 5 candy bars to participate in a snail race. This was such a cool idea for a Halloween level, and they had another reference here as well while collecting the chocolates.
Chocolate? Chocolate!
But after collecting all 5 chocolates, we make our way to the snail race, where we turn into a snail for the race. Fun little idea, kept things fresh, but after the race we find a new enemy in the boxing jelly. Once you hit the boxing jelly, it splits up into two smaller jellies who latch onto you if you don't hit them and slow you down. But after the whole fight, we get our next achievement, Red and Shiny, for hitting 50 buttons, and another achievement, Return to Sender, for defeating 5 jelly makers by knocking enemies into them. And after turning on all the lights for the Shadow Theater, we then finished its puzzle to get access to the next area and a little reference to the Night Shift episode. But after going down a slide and entering a museum, we find Gary, but he's enormous from all the candy he's been eating, obviously. This fight, the gimmick is to not let Gary see you as he destroys candy machines. If he sees you, he's going to fire a laser at you like how the spooky jellies do and freeze you. There is an achievement to this boss fight where you don't let him see you for the whole entirety of the boss fight. But after destroying the last candy machine, Gary doesn't turn small again, and we have to take him back big and gain our next story achievement, Scaredy Pants. After a chat with Madame Cassandra, we get our next outfit and the portal to the next Wish World, this one being the prehistoric world, where Squidward is. It's quite funny because the whole lead up to this wish for this world was SpongeBob saying, "I wish Squidward would finally be appreciated for his art," hence for saying only primitive minds would enjoy his art, which was quite funny when I thought about it. Aesthetically, I like this level the most. They put a lot of time into it, and it generally made you feel like you were in prehistoric times. But after a little bit of the level, we learn a new ability, Grand Slam, where once you double jump with SpongeBob, you can do a Grand Slam on buttons or enemies. We then find a new enemy in the Burrower, who, like most enemies in this game, have an achievement attached to them, I'll get later on, called Jaws with Flaws, where you defeat 10 enemies with the Burrower. With some more exploring, we find Squidward trying to catch some jellyfish, but then he gets snagged by some cave fish. We chase after them, leading us to a new platforming mechanic in this game, boulder rolling. Like the name says, you just roll on a boulder. After the whole boulder sequence is done, we find a gigantic Dorudon, where we must catch 15 jellyfish to wake him up. We then get past the whale, or Dorudon, and get a small cutscene while walking inside a cave. I really like the cutscenes in this game. They are very well animated. But after the cutscene, we get to a slide part of the level. Oh great, a slide! I'm terrible at slides, but practice makes perfect, I guess. But after some more platforming, we make our way to a puzzle door. It took me quite a while to figure this one out, but thankfully they had the symbol code behind some tickies, which made the door a lot easier. Now for the Pom Pom boss fight. For the first phase, all you do is you dodge the shockwaves and defeat the enemies until stalagmites, the little pillar things from the tops of the cave, fall down from the ceiling to hit these dinosaur teeth looking things on the wall, that are holding up what appears to be the bone chandelier. This then breaks the surrounding area of Pom Pom's platform she's standing on, opening up our next phase of the boss fight, where we dodge her crying and the shockwaves while defeating enemies to destroy these dinosaur teeth that are underneath the platform she is standing on, saving Squid and getting our next achievement, Ugg Ooga! I think that's how you pronounce it. For the boss achievement for Pom Pom, though, you have to not get hit by her shockwaves for the entire fight. We then make it back to Bikini Bottom and find Squid is still talking like a cave squid, and are tasked to look for some dictionaries from our library to give to Squidward to study. After that, we make it to Madame Cassandra to give us our next costume and the location to the next portal, which is where Pearl is going to be. We're now in medieval sulfur fields on top of a rainbow that we're tasked to slide down. We then crash into Princess Pearl's window, where she tells us she doesn't want to leave this world because she's going to throw the most coralist slumber party in all the kingdom. After she shuts her window, we accidentally drop our magic bubble wand. As it falls to the ground, we're now tasked to descend the tower stairway, if you can call it a stairway. After descending the so-called stairway, we make our way into the gardens of the castle. This is pretty much just a maze that I had to navigate through. During the maze, we get the achievement SpongeBob Jelly Pants for holding 10,000 cosmic jelly at once. After the maze, we find ourselves in the courtyard of the castle, where we need to find the key to the stable. We find all 3 keys and open the stable to find a unicorn. It picks up the last piece of the bubble wand and runs off. We now have to follow the unicorn and get the bubble wand back. We find ourselves at Twitchy the Witchy's cottage, where she tells us we gotta find some pro-aging cream. She will then give us the last piece of the bubble wand. We find all the aging cream we needed to find and make our way back to Twitchy, who, as she watches us try to repair the wand, she repairs it herself with her mouth? Interesting. So we make our way back to the castle courtyard where we can now participate in the bar competition, where if we win the competition we will get access to Princess Pearl's slumber party. So after winning the simple minigame, we can now make our way to the ballroom where Princess Pearl's slumber party is, being ruined because of the jellies, and no one is serving the cake. So we're tasked now to save this slumber party by serving the attendees cake while defeating enemies who are trying to stop us. This is the boss part of the level, so pretty much all you do is you go to the middle area, spin attack the wheel on the cake machine, and carry the cake that it spits out. After the first cake is served, Twitchy the Witchy will crash into the ballroom using her magic orbs to disrupt you, delivering the cakes. There is an achievement, Knight in Shining PJs, where you have to do this without getting hit. But it's okay to get hit by the orbs, because apparently the orbs don't count as getting hit. After saving the slumber party, we take Pearl back to Bikini Bottom, where she gives us a whale of a hug, and gain the achievement King of the Castle for completing the main quests in medieval Sulphur Fields. Now on to our next and final location, Glove World. We're now in Glove World. The first area is pretty much just rides and games that you get the blooms from, so do them if you're going for 100%. After that we make our way to the Tunnel of Glove. After exploring the Tunnel of Glove, we find ourselves outside where we found the Reef Blower. The Reef Blower is such a cool concept for this game. What you do with the Reef Blower is you either suck in enemies or objects with it to fill up its gauge, and when the gauge is full, you can blast some goo at either a blockage or an enemy with it. After the whole learning of the Reef Blower area, we are now in Glove World Jail, where we meet a new enemy in the Squid Jelly. The only way to defeat this enemy is with the discharge from the Reef Blower. He has two different attacks, one where he sprays white goo on the ground like how the Tartar Jelly does, and one where he chews on some goo and spits it at you. When he spits the purple goo at you, you can suck that in to fill up your gauge on your Reef Blower. It takes 2 discharges from the Reef Blower to kill the Squid Jelly. After getting out of Glove World Jail, we are now tasked to get to the Krusty Krab. After making our way to the Krusty Krab, we find Patrick and Glovey Glove? Glovey Glove is the boss. So when we get into the boss fight with Glovey Glove, all we do is we have to find the Reef Blower to fill up our gauge and shoot it at Glovey Glove. Pretty straightforward. The achievement for this boss fight is to let Glovey Glove defeat 20 enemies, so pretty much the purple goo he shoots down at you damages enemies, and all you do is you have to defeat enemies with that goo to get the achievement. But after that, we save Patrick and the Krusty Krab, getting our next story achievement, Ride Rider. After that, we come back to Madame Cassandra with the last of the Cosmic Jelly. Plot twist, she turned out to be evil all along and was the final boss all along. She entangles King Neptune in some jelly and turns Squid into Jelly Squidward for our final boss fight. So all you do is you dodge the incoming jelly shockwaves during this boss fight until a Reef Blower appears. When the Reef Blower appears, fill the gauge up with the enemies that are spawning around you and shoot the discharge at Madame Cassandra. You have to do this 3 times. It's very simple, and the optional achievement attached to this fight is to not get hit by Jelly Squidward's tentacles during the fight for the achievement Tentacle Dodger. After that, we get the achievement Local Hero, and we get our way into post-game. So pretty much all I did post-game was finish up all the side quests and the collectibles and the optional boss achievements. So next bit of footage will just be me getting the achievements without any commentary. Also, there are a couple of achievements I missed early on that I got called Bubble the Trouble, where you bubble Tartar Jellies 10 times who are engaged in an attack, Boxing Champion for destroying 1000 Tikis, Bounce Bob by jumping on the same jump pad 10 times, and Is It a Plane or Is It a Pizza, or gliding in the air for 1000 meters. Thank you so much for watching. Not sure when my next video is gonna be. I'm trying to make content like at least once or twice a month. But it might come down to I might make content at least once a month with the type of games I'm planning on doing in the future. So if you're expecting a lot of content out of this channel, try not to, because these videos do take a while to make and I'm still trying to figure out games to play. Like I really want to do farming sim games, but like the achievements for those games take like over 500 plus hours to do, so I'm not sure if I'm gonna be able to do that in 1 month. But like those are the types of games that I really want to do some achievement hunts for. But I'm not sure what my next game will be. So hopefully people stay tuned and peace. Thank you so much for watching, and I hope everyone has a great day.